1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. If you're new here and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. So in today's episode of Scream Kingdom, we will be basically revamping the park that we have so far. So my original intent for episode 4 was to make this whole new land themed to national parks, and it's gonna have a Vekoma mine train in it, and it's supposed to be modeled off of Big Grizzly Mountain runaway mine cars at Hong Kong Disneyland. However, I realized that that area would be Disney-ish and not really realistic, while I want this park to be a generic or realistic park. So I decided, and there's a lot of other excuses for me to revamp this park. There's also the reason that there is a huge lake, which makes no sense when you could make a really cool main street in the area instead. And also, I didn't really like how there's a huge pre-entry area that's like almost irrelevant. So overall, I wasn't really too satisfied with the park. So I decided to revamp it to make it better. So first, what I did is I found a parking lot or a starter map on the workshop. I found this one really good one that fitted my needs perfectly. So I forgot who the user is, but I will link his workshop down in the description below of this video and in the final video of this episode, and also of course on the description of when I post this park on the workshop. And so what I basically did in this episode is I made an entrance plaza, which was smaller, of course. Then I made a main street, which is modeled off of International Street. Then I made a Ferris wheel, and we're branched off to have a tiny go-kart track, and the train station, which I built in episode 3. So basically all that I transferred from my other park was the entrance building and the train station, and that's it. Everything else is completely new, and I couldn't be more happy. So when I built the entrance plaza, of course I wanted it to be smaller than what my original park had, and overall it turned out really great. The building on the right, which is what I'm building right now, it's supposed to be a first aid building and an information stand, and it's modeled off of a Cinnabon building at Carowinds. And to be honest, it looks a little Greek, which is not what I'm going for. So I might change this in the future, I really don't know, but overall it does look pretty nice. The building on your left, which is what I'm gonna build a little later, is modeled off of a tiny building at Six Flags Over Georgia, and this is supposed to be the ticket building where there's Lost and Found and all those stuff. And then the entrance building, of course, is the same. And when I was building this, I had a little problem because a lot of parks, they build like these ticket booths or like these separate buildings that you enter that have all the bag checks, the rotating stuff, I forget what it's called, but it's all the security stuff, along with an additional entrance building, which is the really nice building. So I don't know if I wanted to include both buildings or just combine it into one entrance building. I decided to combine it into one entrance building so that it saves space, but I want you to let me know down in the comments if that's okay, if that's realistic. If not, then I might find a way. Yeah, I'll probably find a way to incorporate those ticket buildings or whatever those are called. But anyways, in the main street, again, this is modeled off of the international streets that you see at Cedar Fair parks like Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, and Kings Dominion, which are all Paramount parks. And overall, this is a little shorter, and I was really satisfied with it. The buildings that you see on the side, you're gonna see that I just like placed them there. That's because I was working on this little project that I didn't share on YouTube with my little brother who was interested in Planet Coaster for a period of time. Now he doesn't like Planet Coaster anymore, but at the time he did, and so we decided to build a park. And I decided to put in a main street in that building. So I transferred that main street from that park because now we don't play it anymore, and I put it into our new Screen Kingdom. And so it fits perfectly, and most of the buildings are vintage, and it took a long time for me to make it because there's these like details that I couldn't really there are a lot of details that are in these buildings, and overall I was really impressed with this main street overall. And so behind the main street there is, well, first of all, at the end there is a barbershop quartet that came with the new vintage pack that came recently, and behind that is a Ferris wheel. So I didn't really like that star wheel that we had earlier because that was really big compared to the scale that I'm trying to get in game. This Ferris wheel that's also in game is much more scaled than the last Ferris wheel. So I went ahead and put in that Ferris wheel instead of that huge Ferris wheel. Plus there's a Ferris wheel in game that's even bigger than that star wheel. Wow. I still named this Ferris wheel Star Wheel, but it's a different model than the last one in game. And I don't know if I wanted to put fireworks behind it, but I didn't for now, but that might be something I'll add later on. And so behind the Ferris wheel, which is the last thing that I do in this episode, is I put in the train station that I built in the last episode. I didn't make that train station elevated again, but behind that train station will be a future development that I will build in probably the next episode. Sorry, a vacuum's going on. But to the left is a small go-kart track. So this whole back area is inspired by Dorney Park. So like after you walk down the main street, you'll find this like branch of rides. So there is like a river rapids, which instead for this park it's going to be another water ride. And for the shoot the chute, I replaced that with a go-kart track. And then of course to the left there's going to be a coaster and the river rapids coming soon. But that's for the next episode. But in this episode, all I did is the go-kart track and the train station, along with everything else that came before. And so, the go-kart track was pretty good. I really liked the scenery that I put around the queue. The station building, I tried to look at some go-kart tracks at Cedar Fair parks, and the stations, they weren't the most pretty. They were just like normal iron roofs and pillars. That's really it. So I just did that, but if I may revamp that station later on, but I really don't know right now. I am pretty satisfied with this go-kart track overall. And in the middle of the go-kart track, since it's just like one oval, I decided to put in a I decided to put some theming. So I changed it to asphalt terrain, and I put in some stuff that I got in the Studios pack, which I recently got, because something convinced me to get that Studios pack, which is what I didn't want before, but now it's pretty good actually. I really like that pack. And so it doesn't really look like race car theming, but I think that comes with something like Knight Rider DLC, which I really don't want right now. So I just used Studios pack theming for now, but there might be some race car theming that might come in the Theme Maker's Toolkit. So the Theme Maker's Toolkit, I'm sorry if the vacuum is really loud, so if you hear it then I'm sorry. But anyway, there is a new thing in Planet Coaster called the Theme Maker's Toolkit, and it's a really cool thing where you get to create your own scenery pieces. So who knows, someone might create race cars and I might add that to this go-kart track. But then overall, this area, I really liked it. It was really good, and it was probably one of my best works I've ever done. And so I love it. Compared to my other series that I have here on this channel, this isn't really doing well. And that might be because of how boring this is, but I really don't know. So I want to ask you guys, how could I improve this series? maybe I could do something like iDesign does, this No Limits 2 channel, where all he does is when he builds parks, he just shows the POVs of the coasters as they get built in the park. I might do that, or also I could make these time-lapse episodes in real time. That's another thing I could do, and only show like highlights of it. Or also I could do the same thing that I'm doing, except making it a shorter time, because I mean this is 14 minutes long. I don't know if a lot of my viewers would want to watch 14 minutes of just me building in Planet Coaster. But overall, I want you guys to tell me in the comments, how could I improve this series? And so a lot has happened since the last episode. Like last time I made an episode, so many things came out. There was the 1.7 update, I think. That's where they added a lot of new shrubbery. There was the Vintage Pack that came out recently. That is my all-time favorite DLC, and it's still my favorite DLC, even with the World's Fair DLC that came out recently. And also, of course, there's the World's Fair DLC, which I didn't purchase yet, but it has a lot of like Asian assets. There's like British, I think, Mexican, and some others that I can't think of off the top of my head. Maybe like Arabian too, I really don't know, because I don't have it. And the 1.8 update, I think that's what it's called, and that is a really cool update too, because there's a lot of things that improve the game. And so a lot has happened, but I'm still here, guys. So you probably noticed in this episode that there's this coaster to the left of the entrance and the main street that's purple and black. That is an Intamin Mega Coaster that's gonna I'm gonna work on in the future. That's gonna be the tallest roller coaster in the park. It's gonna probably be the most dynamic roller coaster in the park. Well, it's not gonna be the tallest actually. There might be one coaster taller, but as of now, it's the tallest coaster in the park. And it's gonna feature a layout that is inspired by Hyperion and the new Mega Coaster concepts that are coming. So like, there's Wallaby Belgium's Intamin Mega Coaster that's coming in like 2021, which by the way, that thing looks insane. Hyperion looks like a really fun ride too. But I modeled this ride after those two rides. Right now, as of when this is recorded, the ride isn't finished. I'm still working on it because I want to try get like this ride to be one of my masterpieces. So I try, but it's still a work in progress. This whole park is a work in progress. And also, if you notice, between the parking lot and the buildings that are in the pre-entry plaza, there is a little space, actually a pretty decent size space. That's because I'm trying to have like a gatekeeper like entrance where there is this B&M dive coaster that does a 0G roll over the entrance plaza. I didn't want to have it over the entrance building because if you look at the entrance building, that is huge. But I decided to build the 0G roll out front by the parking lot. So I might have like nets covering it because I really don't want to put any like phone policies like Cedar Fair or Six Flags in it. So I'm deciding to put netting over it later on. And so the main park improvements that I have here is a better use of space for the main street. So instead of having a huge lake that does nothing for the park, I made a main street which has a lot of helpful buildings for the park. And overall, I am pretty happy with this episode. The future that's coming along is a lot of terrain and a lot of alpine theming. So yeah, this episode is basically almost done. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I really appreciate it. If all goes well, I'll try to have at least one new episode every month. If you're new here and roller coasters are what you're into, then please consider subscribing for content all about roller coasters. Thank you so much for watching. Here comes the cinematics, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.